So she comes through with a personality. I would say she can be somewhat independent on time, so she might stand out from a crowd. She's exuberant, outgoing. I think there's a lot of behavior. Whoever's watching behavior, there'll be a lot of behavior from this individual. So I have her happy here. I don't get a sense it took her a long time to settle. It's interesting because you question how long, is it weeks, months, years to settle? I think she settled fairly quickly. She keeps on showing two elephants that are really close, looks like males, two males that might hang out, but she keeps on showing that there's a two herd. So although they came in at 5, there's two that's definitely very close. When it comes to the environment, and I can see a certain amount, but I have a ton of different surfaces, which is interesting, that my mind starts to go to say, did you guys specifically do that from sand, mud, concrete? So I have mud being soft, the concrete, the water, of course. There were 4, I've only got 3 there. Maybe grass was the next one. Tons of different surfaces. Lots of interactive things for them to do. So you guys must be looking at engaging them. So when we look around for the naked eye, I only see the water and the grass, etc. She shows lots of engagement activities. So be that for the mind, or be that they have to become curious and work things out a little bit. I do have a long patch here that they have access to, so it seems exceedingly long from my right to my left that comes around. I have an area where there's mud versus the water, and she can go into the water and play. On the food front, we have high, medium, low, so we've got everything there, things that we can pick up, things that we can play with. I was going to go another direction, hang in there. Tires. Earlier I had a tire. I don't know if you guys have ever brought tires in or why, but I keep on seeing a tire and I don't see it physically, but I've had tire mentioned a couple of times and I don't even know why they look at a tire as to what's important about it. It's not even natural, but we have tires being mentioned. Maybe you can elaborate on that later on. Hang in there, I've missed quite a bit. Okay, on the hierarchy you mentioned, she keeps on saying 2 together, which is a big thing, but in independence. I don't have her fighting it out. It's interesting. Do we have that hierarchy with Stephanie just being at the top there? Absolutely. But then amongst the 5, it seems to be a different aspect. So we have her standing out, and I think she just owns that full stop. But amongst the 5, you have a different aspect. I don't have her questioning who's ranking. I have her believing that I don't think she's as high as she would want to be. Let me put it like that. I think she teeter-totters in the middle, and I don't think she necessarily just has the bloodline or what it takes. I think she'd want to be higher, but the truth is the wisdom just isn't there for her. So even if she's older, she appears younger in many ways, and I'm not even sure what that means because I don't know the behavior of elephants, but I think she'd want to be more than she is equipped to be. Do you understand that? Yeah. I didn't say no, and I just reworded it to you, but that's how it's being shown. Does it make sense to you? Yeah. It's like exactly what she's showing. Right.
It's constantly fluctuating.
That's exactly what she's teeter-tottering. She shows fluctuating. She shows she's not where she would want to be, that she doesn't really have the wisdom as a youthful mind. Makes perfect sense. Okay, hang in there. I wanted to see what else she wanted to share. So we have things from above. Of course, that could be the hay, but I also think is it called emulated as much as you can the outside environment. So we do have sand that we could utilize as well as the mud, as well as the water. There's an awful lot. The only thing, say, is missing would be to be able to hide in trees. And I think they think there's an option of that, but they haven't got it. So there must be somewhere on the property that they think they could go in, but they're not going into it. Because trees and getting that natural seclusion would be missing. Does that make sense to you guys?
Mm-hmm.
so hiding in amongst the brush. And they can easily, I don't think the people phase them either. They can ignore the people, not an issue for them. They can get far enough away from people. That's not good to interfere with who they are. And your only thing would be to be able to put them, to allow them to be somewhere totally away. And people would go, well, where are they? They're in the bushes. Okay, any questions? You can ask anything you want, literally. It's an opportunity to say anything. Did you take care of her? Why did you choose her?
Curiosity.
Curiosity. Any other reason?
So she kept saying something about twos?
There's a pair of twos. So there will be 2 elephants that hang out more than the others. Who is that?
Well, should I give more information? She is potentially, we don't have the DNA, but 2 of them might be her half-sister or more closely related.
Okay, that's the 2.
Could be.
Yeah. And her likes, you've got a ton of likes. She must have settled exceedingly quickly. So despite the fact that they came in from the wild, not a bad environment and enclosure to be in.
Yeah.
Yeah,
They did adapt.
that's huge. Could have had a terrible time, but they didn't. So that's great. If I say to her, what do you think of the keepers here? What do you think of the individuals here? She shows people quite, let's say, preoccupied. So there's a lot to be done, and they're thinking ahead of this is what we've got to do next, this is this. So it's not necessarily just attaching to the now, but instead it's about we've got to get this organized and then we move on to here. So that's an interesting perspective. If I ask her if there's anything she's concerned about or anything that takes a little bit of getting used to, it would be on the right in there. And so on the left, I feel like they've come in and out. They've got used to it, the haze above, I've seen this, the sand pile, etc. But I don't think the small enclosures are her favourite. So not like this, a small area. And I would say anything smaller than, we'd call it a box stall on a horse. Could be a crate, could be a smaller area. You're going to have problems with her, I believe, with that smaller area. So have you guys found that she's challenged by that? Because it looks like she's showing clearly she's challenged by it.
To the right of the barn.
Okay.
Is what she's
Because she doesn't challenge a hierarchy like you were saying. I mean, she might want to be higher up, but she has challenges on the right from certain members.
Okay. So it does make sense.
It can't, yeah.
Yeah.
How you interpret, yes, but
Right.
yeah.
Perfect. But otherwise I have her settled fine. So not an issue. I didn't ask her about you. I think it's more the change, you know, I could assume what it is, but I don't think it's personal. Okay. Alright. So for what it's worth, I wanted to go back. Over there. I wanted to go back to the girl here. And something intrigued me suddenly when I shut my eyes, and I thought, what is it about the fact you settled right away? Because if it were me, I'm not sure if I'd settle right away. Coming from the wild, I do have that she settled. I do have she's familiar with the other elephants, so it's not like she had to get to know all the other elephants. And I do have that she fully understands that there was no future where she came from. Now, with that being said, you could arguably say that there was a drought, that's what I'm familiar with. But she's also alluding to the fact that many of the others didn't make it. So there would have been other animals, so we know there's a drought. She's stating many of the others didn't make it. That means that's why she settled so easily. You could look around and you might say, well, it's our enclosure, but is it? There's such a cultural shift, there's an environmental shift, there's, well, everything's changed. But she comes back with the others didn't all make it. Does that make sense to you? Mm-hmm. So not everybody was saved out there, not everybody was rescued. Nope. A ton didn't, but she was familiar with those that surrounded her that came out. I don't think she put up much of a fight, so although she's independent and so on, I don't think she challenged an awful lot. She would have only challenged what her mind couldn't handle, versus the situation she was in. Does that make sense,
Yeah.
Lauren? Okay. It intrigued me when I'm thinking about that.
Yeah.
Okay.